Thanks for joining us for Season 3 of the Stories Unveiled podcast. Stories Unveiled exists to create a platform for people to share hope through personal stories about what Jesus has done in their life. Each episode highlights a different guest just like you and me, wading through this life that can get so messy. I hope this conversation proves helpful and encourages you to go live unveiled. Today's guest is Kris Rocha. Kris is a speaker, co-creator, and co-host of the Betrayal Recovery Transformation podcast and a trained PSAP coach at Watermark Coaching. She is also a wife and a mom who loves to travel and has a heart for all people. Kris has her own incredible story of healing from trauma and betrayal, and I am so excited to have her here to share with you today. Kris, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So we're just going to dive in. First off, because I would have no idea what this is if I was not in the world of such things, but you are a life coach. Tell me what a PSAP is.
Oh, that's a great question. A PSAP is acronym. What does it mean? It is a pastoral sex addiction professional.
Yes.
So I went through a certification process with an organization called ITAP, where I was trained as a layperson, basically to come alongside people who are recovering from betrayal trauma or sex addiction. So I'm not a therapist, but I am a trained layperson.
Okay. In the pastoral realm, right?
Exactly.
Okay. That's awesome. So tell me what kind of coaching you do. I know that you probably do a bunch, but you had told me your niche is identity work. Is that correct? So tell me a little bit about that, what that means, and what kind of coaching you offer.
So once the client has done the betrayal recovery work, usually they want to launch forward into working on their identity. So many women, whether they've lost their identity in their marriage or maybe they've been an empty nester and now the kids are gone and they don't know what they're supposed to do with their lives. Maybe a lot of my clients are young women who have just never spent the time to figure out who they are and what they're called to do. So we move forward into that identity work. And as someone who is recovering and has recovered from betrayal trauma, it's always an ongoing journey.
Right.
That was the single most powerful thing I did, was look into my identity and being able to articulate that for the first time in my life and know with confidence who I am and what my purpose is and what I'm here to do, what I'm called to do, was huge for me. And my clients say the same thing. So it helps us to really hone in that phrase of pursuing your own healing. And it really helped me to put some healthy boundaries down as well. It really, I don't know how else to better articulate that, but when you know your identity and you know what your strengths are, your personality and all that stuff, it helps you to say yes to the right things and no to the things that you really shouldn't be involved in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I'm sure part of that is healthy boundaries and just all of those things that are healthy in just living life.
Absolutely.
You said that, I loved that you said therapy is like kind of looking back and dealing with probably present things, but looking back, and coaching is looking forward. I've always viewed coaching versus therapy as therapy is like dealing with, and coaching is getting unstuck and moving out of, such place. So
well said.
I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about why you have pursued this as your niche in particular. You're really diving into identity and who you are, and why is that so important to you?
So in 2019, I experienced betrayal in my marriage, and about that time, I had also come out of a series of admin jobs. So I was meeting with our family therapist, and he had me do a core values test and said, you should be a life coach. You would be an amazing life coach. And that lined up. And right after that time, then D-Day happened, Discovery Day, where I did experience betrayal in my marriage. And so it just, there's that, I love the phrase, make your mess your message. And it just became very clear. So this is, this might sound crazy, but I'm going to say it anyway. When I was about 12 years old, so I'm in middle school, I had what I'm going to call a vision. And a vision isn't, some people may experience this, but for me, it wasn't like, oh, I've been transported into a different dimension and I see things.
Yeah.
So, the angel Gabriel has appeared in front of me like he did with Mary. No, it wasn't like that. But it was like God just kind of gave me a vision in my mind's eye of, you are going to speak to women, you're going to encourage them and help them to leap forward. And I literally had a picture in my mind of being on the ground and seeing a woman over my head with these two massive boulders, and she's leaping over my head from one boulder to the other. Wow. And so then here I was, 51. I'm in my 50s at this current time, and it wasn't happening. Yeah. I had 2 children. I was a bonus mom to 2 other children, second marriage, all that good stuff. And nothing was happening. And then all of a sudden when betrayal happened, the best way I can say it was, okay, I can see the trailhead now. I can see the path. I'm not on it yet, but I can see, okay, God just opened a door. And so that's why betrayal recovery became a passion for me, because I walked that path. I'm way farther down that path now. And it's such an honor to come alongside women who are fresh in that process and to say, I know this path you're on. I know this trail well. I can lead you down it. So we can get through this together.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. And how amazing that you experienced betrayal and you were like, okay, God, I see an opening. I see a door. Because for me, when I experienced betrayal, I was like, really, God? Really? Like, what door are you closing? Why are you doing this to me? Why, like all of the things. And I didn't really see it as a beautiful opportunity to help others until much, much, much later.
Yeah. So. I think that is so normal. And I think that, I don't know, somehow people are gifted with different things for different reasons. We're all so unique in our creation. And God gave me an incredibly high level of curiosity. So while I was absolutely vibrating with trauma and so incredibly stressed out and doing what everyone does, trying so hard to keep my head above water and feeling like I was drowning and waterboarding myself with all the things to fix it as soon as I could, I did have mixed into that a high level of curiosity, and I could see that trailhead, that path in my mind's eye, and I wanted to know what was around the corner. Yeah. So I think that was part of God's mercy in keeping me kind of sane through that whole situation. So, and it has turned out very well. So
that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you.
Like you, we've got a good outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not always everybody's story, but
it's not.
But yeah, I'm obviously thankful for mine. So yeah,
me too.
So tell me about your podcast. It is called the Betrayal Recovery Transformation Podcast. Is that correct?
That's right.
And that's on all podcast platforms, right?
I mean, maybe some of the niche ones, not yet, but okay. Yeah, most of them,
all the major ones.
We can safely say anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Yeah. So tell me about that. You are, am I right? And you are co-host and co-founder, co-creator?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Tell
me about
that. I have a podcast with my dear friend, your also dear friend, Jen Howie.
Yes.
Who was she was the person who led me down that trail. Yeah. She led me through because she knew that road well, that path well. But yeah, we it's all in name. We talk about betrayal, we talk about recovery, and we talk about transformation. So all of our episodes kind of fit into one of those 3 categories, and we mix it up a little bit and have story spotlights, but it's such a joy to come alongside another woman, and she's such a strong, dynamic, brilliant woman, and to be able to make our message, to be able to pay it forward. And with podcasting, you get to talk to so many amazing people and make such great connections. And oh gosh, it's such an honor to sit sit there and learn. We're just absorbing from these experts that we've had on. And it's just so fun. It really appeals to my sense of curiosity and data mining.
Yeah, so. Data mining.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, it is. It is a great podcast. I was a guest on it a while ago. I can't remember.
You were like our third person that we had. Thank you for taking a risk with us. But yeah, such a great episode.
Absolutely. And then Jen Howie has actually been on the Stories Unveiled podcast in, I think it was last season. So her story is also incredible. But your guys' podcast is awesome. I know that it's helping so many. I've actually had people reach out to me and tell me that they heard my story on your podcast because they religiously listen to your podcast because it is so helpful. So
what a blessing.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. So you do any story that fits into betrayal, recovery, or transformation, and they don't necessarily have to all overlap, right? I mean,
not at all. Yeah. And we don't do them in any certain order, but if it's betrayal related, if it's recovery related, if it's transformation related, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And that's a lot of things. You could talk about a lot of things.
There's a lot, the identity falls into the transformation part and, what are your next steps? And so, navigating triggers. We had Dr. Jill Manning on a few weeks ago, and looking forward to her episode going live, talking about policing and snooping behaviors and, all that stuff. So it's just, it's rich. We're learning. Like I said, there's a lot I've learned over the last many years, but there's still so much to learn. So that's why the journey is we have not arrived. We're always arriving. We're always getting, there's always growth to be had.
Well, that podcast link will be in the show notes of this episode. So Anybody listening can go find that and go check out your podcast too.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about you, Kris, and your life growing up. Tell me about your family of origin and just what life was like growing up for you.
Sure. Wow, where to start? So we moved a lot, and I love that you're asking this question about family of origin, because what we find is, and it's all brain science, and I'll try to explain this somewhat concisely, but where we come from, that inner child that everyone's talking about in the 80s and 90s. Oh, your inner child. It sounds so Freud, but it really is a thing. There is that inner child that we have, that memory of ourselves when we were kids, that impacts how we respond to trauma or any situation really as adults. There's a template that's been set, and it's important to recognize what that template is. So my earliest childhood memory was when I was 4 years old. We lived in Las Vegas at the time, and my dad was raised in a very socialite kind of family. That's my description of them. Like, my grandparents could have hung out with the Rat Pack, with Bing Crosby and, and the country clubs and the dinner parties and the cocktail parties and the cocktail dresses and the tuxes, all that stuff.
Wow.
So image was very important to my grandparents and to my dad. He was raised in that family system. So we're sitting at a restaurant in Las Vegas, and I'm between my mom and my dad, and in my mind's eye, there's 10, 12 people at this table. And all of a sudden, I feel this sharp stabbing pain in my right hand. And then my father had stabbed me in the back of my hand with his fork.
Wow.
And it's bleeding. And I remember, squealing and then just being shocked and embarrassed. It was the overwhelming emotion I felt was embarrassment.
You were 4.
I'm 4 years old.
Okay.
And my mom leans over and says, "Why did you do that?" And my dad said, "She wasn't holding her fork correctly." Oh. And so manners, I've got the Kingsman movie in my head right now. Manners make the man. Well, that mattered. I was representing him, and I wasn't holding my fork correctly. I think it was a business get together, and this was the family system he was raised in, that you have to look perfect. Doesn't matter if you are, you just have to look it.
Play the part.
So you got to play the part, and I wasn't representing well. So I do want to say I love my dad. I had a rough childhood with him, but he passed away he passed away in 2021, I think. And I bought him a book for his 75th birthday called Imagine Heaven by Pastor John Burke. Highly recommend this book. It changed my father.
Wow.
It's all about near-death experiences, and he compares all this research he did on people's near-death experiences to what Scripture says about heaven and God and who we are and who He is. And it was transformative for him. So he got it. The light clicked. He understood that he was loved, that God's grace was for him, that mercy was there for him. And he made amends with so many people. So he had a very soft ending after a very hard life.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. But I was able to talk with him one day. It was like a 2.5-hour conversation about his family of origin and the things that he was exposed to and the messages he received as a child, and he was just passing that down to me. So he was raised in that family system, and the hope that we have with this learned behavior that gets passed down is that it just takes one person to identify it and to stand up and do it differently. And that's hard work, to change the narrative and to change the pattern. But if one person in that family chain is willing to do the hard work of therapy or coaching or whatever it is that's needed to understand what's happening and how to do it better, then it changes the chain for the people that come after us. So
right.
I was very grateful that God, I guess, brought these things to our attention. I have 4 sisters, so that we could do it differently with our kids. So but that's my earliest childhood memory. And what I learned was through all this betrayal work is when you have a trigger now as an adult and you're no longer present and accounted for, you're not in your prefrontal cortex, so that logic center of the brain. And now you're stressing out. You're having a trauma response, which is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And fawning is people pleasing and placating. That's kind of a newer one that we're all talking about.
Freeze is new from when I was walking through it. It was just fight or flight, done.
Oh, wow.
It was just fight or flight.
Gosh.
So
and
yes,
freeze is huge.
Freeze is huge. It's actually very real. It has actually been a trauma response for me that I was not able to pinpoint when I was in my 20s. That now freeze is one of those responses that I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because I guess you would consider it flight, but I didn't flee. I literally was paralyzed. I literally froze.
Right.
So
like that brain fog, going numb. I can't words. I can't human.
You're stuck. You're stuck in the decision making, and you can't act. You're just stuck.
It's so debilitating.
Yeah. But then there's fawn, and that's new.
Yes, and that was my go-to response, was fawning, people pleasing. I was the best chameleon ever. I would morph into whatever was needed in that moment from that person so that I would be either accepted or so I could just survive, so I could connect. Really, it was ultimately, it's for control.
Yeah.
Whatever our trauma response is, we're trying to protect ourselves, or our brain is, and we're trying to get control. But so what I tell my clients is, when you are experiencing a trigger, think back to your earliest childhood trauma and then see about if that circumstance connects to the circumstance or the situation that you're responding to now. Well, what's happening is you're no longer a 26-year-old adult or a 45-year-old adult. When that trigger happens, it's your brain going, oh, danger, we've been here before, this isn't good, run, fight, whatever it is that you need to do, fawn. For me, when I was being triggered, I was reverting to a 4-year-old with that fork in my hand.
Yeah.
And everything I learned as a little kid, as a little girl, to survive that moment is what I'm now using in my 50s to try to navigate the scary situation I'm in. And it was that was powerful. And I thank Jen Howie for teaching this, to me. She's a brain science nerd, but because now once you know that, then you can talk yourself off the ledge. You can say, okay, this is a trigger. I'm thinking like a 4-year-old, and you can kind of reparent yourself, show up for yourself as an adult and go, okay, let's walk back to our prefrontal cortex, the logic center of the brain, where we can do some box breathing, we can calm our nervous system down and start making sense of the situation and make some logical choices that actually protect ourselves.
Right.
So that was my trauma response story. Like I said, things finished well with my dad. I understood his family of origin, and then through all the work I have done to become a coach, I was able to put some of those tools into place to forgive my dad and to work at not being a fawn person, not being a people-pleasing person. And that entailed understanding what forgiveness is and isn't. It entailed finding my identity, being able to articulate that. And the biggest piece of all, I'd say my most favorite piece of all was being able to identify my God concept and see where that was off the rails and get my God concept lined up.
Talk to me about your God concept.
Okay. So I was in Bible college back in the day, and my professor, Pastor Paul Goulet, taught a class called Reconcilers, and it made an impact on me because I still remember it like the back of my hand to this day. So we have 5 common God concepts, 5, and I'll run down them really fast. So, and they're false God concepts. So the first one is Zeus. Like, God is up in the sky and he's floating on a cloud and he's just waiting for us to mess up so he can throw a lightning bolt at us.
I know people that believe that.
Oh yeah. He's this just big bad guy that's going to zap you if you take one wrong step, and he's looking for it. He's waiting for you to mess up. The next one is the absentee landlord.
Okay.
So God is just, he created all this, he threw all this together in the cosmos, and then he took off for some other galaxy far, far away, and he's not coming back. He's on a perpetual vacation. He's not here, and he's left us to figure all this out. Absentee landlord. Another one is the cruel chess player. So it's like God, like we're pawns on a board game, and he's just sort of moving us around like rats in a lab kind of thing. He's just moving us around to his delight. Doesn't really care what the outcome is. If he's in a good mood, maybe the game will go well. If he's in a bad mood, we're in for it.
Yeah.
So cruel chess player. And then there's another one that's kind of like Santa Claus. Like God is this big, handyman in the sky, and he's a genie in a bottle, and he's just gonna, he's gonna bring the reindeer around and shower us with blessings and good gifts. And there's no consequences, there's no accountability, there's no relationship there. He's Santa. So, and that's some of those God concepts are scary, but the Santa one is kind of hollow. There's no relationship there. And then the final one is the cruel ruler. And that was my God concept. So people picture God like Moses, but however you want to picture him, in a white toga with a long white beard or whatever, but he's standing with a measuring tape and he's telling you, come over here and we're going to see how you measure up. And oftentimes we get our God concept from our father or from an important sort of father figure. Right. It could be a mother, it could be a female, but somehow most of us relate with that male figure. Right. And this was my dad. He was looking for me to measure up, and I was always falling short. So the cruel ruler, I couldn't measure up. And what Paul taught us in that Reconcilers class was that God actually has given us his resume, and it's 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8. And when we read that passage in Scripture, we can replace the word love or charity with God, because in James it says that God is love and love is God, and so he is love. And so when we read that passage, it goes through and says, God is patient, God is kind, God is slow to anger, God does not keep a record of wrongs. He's not looking for me to screw up. He's not looking for you to see how you measure up, and he is present. So that's God's resume, and that's God's true identity. Yeah. So healing my God concept really helped me to learn to trust him and be able to know that even if I can't depend on people sometimes, because we're all fallible, he is consistent and I could depend on him. So reconciling that God concept was a huge part of being able to get through the hard things in life, but also being able to understand my father better and forgive him for where he failed, and to kind of heal my family of origin wounds.
That's amazing. I think
that was a lot.
It was a lot, but you know what? You probably just helped a bunch of people. So,
oh, good. I'm so glad.
Really breaking that down is helpful because, yeah, I know people who, maybe not all, who represent belief in all 5 of those, a few of them. And I think at any given point in my own life, I have changed what I've thought God was. It really hasn't been until the last, I would say less than a decade, that I got to a point where I feel like I truly know who God is, and because of what you read in the Bible, and because of, like you said, we have his resume, we have who he is. If we believe that the Bible is truth, then we can see what he is and what he isn't, and who his character is, and these other concepts of what we believe God to be. Does that fit his character, or does that not? And about what the Bible says, and to change our belief based on what is true, not what we believe to be true, but what is true.
Oh, so good. What is true?
Yeah.
I'm curious, Ashley.
Yeah.
I know you're the host here. I'm
You're
not,
good.
But what was your God concept? Which one did you relate to the most prior to healing that?
Yeah, honestly, I think I have. I would always lean mostly toward the Santa.
Oh,
toward genie in a bottle, Santa. And it's funny because if I look back at the male figure in my life, I won't say father. I do have a dad. I was adopted at the age of 21. So he is my dad, and he helped shift a lot of things for me. But prior to that, the first 21 years of my life, I had different experiences. And my mother at the time was married to somebody else, and that was the first male influential role model in my life. And he was a lot of terrible things, and absent was a lot of them. And he was physically around, but we didn't really have much of a relationship. I know that he provided for the family, and financially we were fine. And I don't know, there was this distance. And so for me, God was always, we just ask for things and you get things, or you don't. It just kind of depends on what he decides to bestow upon you, and you wish for things. And even still, it's funny, I pray with my boys every night before bed, and they're teenagers, and I still sit at their bed and tuck them in.
I love that so much.
Pray with them before bed every night. But even still, when I do, I can sometimes find myself slipping into, Lord, please bless tomorrow, help us sleep well. And I'm asking, and I'm asking, and I'm asking, and I'm asking. And it's like, I have to catch myself every once in a while. And I'm like, man, because I don't want to pass that on to my kids. And then in the sense of all we do is ask, because man, we should be thanking him for all the things that he's done and just who he is, and spending more time in worship with him than I am in asking of things, from him, because like you said, it kind of removes that relationship. How good is a relationship when all I ever do is ask you for things,
Yes. I love that you said that, and I can so identify with what you just shared. And I love that you are the person that's standing up and changing that God concept for that next generation, for next generations. Because you have 3 kids, right?
Yeah, I do. I have 3 kids. I know my daughter's graduating.
Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. She's so fantastic. Can't wait to see what she does in the world. But
thank you. Yes, me too.
We had a guest on named Dr. Laura Sanger, and it's a powerful episode. And she ended it. She's talking about generational curses and tearing down strongholds. And she ended that episode with talking about praying through gratitude. So we're praying, but we're doing it through an attitude of gratitude. And it reminds me of the Lord's Prayer, where we're praising him and we're thanking him. And she says, you can start small. And we can teach this to our kids, oh, thank you that I have a car to drive that has no engine problems today. Thank you that I have a half a tank of gas. Thank you that I've got mac and cheese in the cupboards at home, or, I have a roof over my head, or whatever, just the simple things. Thank you that it's sunny and it's not raining today.
Yeah.
And we can go from there. And as we pray through gratitude, it really does change our mindset. And she said that she's learned that nothing will bring us into God's throne room more quickly or more powerfully than gratitude. It is kind of like, it's unlocking something very spiritually powerful.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask, first I want to ask if there's anything, we didn't talk a whole lot about your betrayal. I don't know if there's anything really poignant that you learned during your betrayal recovery journey, I'll say.
Can we do a part 2? Because that's a long list. No. Okay. Oh gosh, I learned so much. I just have to say the adage of pursue your own healing is the key to healing from really anything, especially if it involves another person that's hurt you or abandoned you or let you down. Because we can't, I love the three C's of Al-Anon. You didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you can't cure it.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to sex addiction, we're not the problem. The spouse, the betrayed spouse, is not the problem. We didn't cause the issue. We can't control the issue. It's so common for people as they're trying to, create safety for themselves here's 5 counselors.
Yep.
And I researched three groups that you can join. And I talked with the directors, and you're going to get this, all these benefits, right?
Oh, yeah. Or we're going to fix this. We're going to fix this.
Oh yeah. And really for me, it was, I'm going to fix this and you're going to get on board with the plan, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
In fact, I asked my husband if I could lure you onto my podcast to talk. What would you say to if your audience was women? And he said the single most powerful thing that the betrayed spouse can do is pursue your own healing.
Yeah,
because it changes the game, and because there's nothing that I did, there's nothing I could have done or I can do that is going to fix someone else.
Right.
That has to come from within the person. So in the effort to create safety, stability, and security for ourselves, we've got to build that ourselves by gathering community, by gaining understanding. It's a crazy thing, but when we go through any kind of betrayal or any kind of trauma, and we are willing to press into the pain instead of run from it, avoid it, ignore it, minimize it, those are all super unhealthy.
Yeah.
But totally understandable and normal.
Yeah.
But when we get to the point where we get brave, and again, courage is not the absence of fear. It's the ability to press in and do those things in the presence of fear.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
With fear on board, right?
Yeah.
So when we're able to get to that point where we're like, okay, I'm doing this, then it changes the narrative. It helps us. I don't know. I think you can relate to this, Ashley. I don't want to throw you in there, but it healed me when I was willing. It healed stuff from way long ago.
Yeah.
That I brought in to this relationship, the baggage I had, and it freed me.
Yeah.
Really. I am a transformed person. I'm not the same person I was, in 2019.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like me so much better. And I just feel free. I'm not following a template anymore. The mask is off. Oh, I was so good at putting on different masks for different things, for different people.
Yeah.
And so it gave me the ability to be emotionally intimate in my relationships, including my marriage. And it gave me the ability to be transparent and vulnerable and not to be afraid of that. So, yeah. So your question was, what are my big takeaways?
Yeah.
Was that
just,
the question?
Something that you learned through it.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I learned through it was, oh gosh, actually I can't quantify that. I can't put a big thing on it.
Well, I think make
your mess your message.
make your mess your message. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. That's like,
Yeah.
that's what we do here.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
think you did sum it up. I mean, talking about the 3 C's of Al-Anon and what you learned through that. I think even just taking something like that away and knowing that you didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you can't cure it. I know that for me, one of the most freeing things to figure out, well, I had 2 things. One was that this addiction that my husband had was present long before I was.
Oh, yes.
And so for me to think that I was going to be a part of the healing, I'd like to be a part of his healing, or be present with it, but to play a role in his healing is silly of me to think that, because this was present long before I was. He needs to do this. And then the second thing that I really learned in it, which you kind of talked about, was that my healing in this is not dependent on his. It's not dependent on the choices that he makes or what he does or what he chooses to do, but that I can get healing. And because I, like you, also brought a lot of baggage into my marriage, I had so many things that I did not have resolved in my own head. I had not worked through. I had so much really unresolved trauma that I brought into the marriage, that once I found this freedom in working through my own stuff, I was like, man, I need healing from this too in my marriage and this betrayal. But I don't have to wait for him to get on board. I don't have to wait for him to figure it out. My healing is not dependent on his, and vice versa. His isn't either. And
isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we
it's
can
freeing.
move forward.
Yeah.
And it changes the game. And that's exciting. It takes a long time to let go of that rope. I've got this picture of, a couple playing tug of war, and you're not going anywhere. It's just, back and forth, but hey, let go of the rope, see what happens. Now you're not playing the game. Or get off the merry-go-round is another metaphor for that. They can go around and around and around, but you don't have to.
You can get off. Yeah.
And likewise, like you said, they can get off too if the other spouse is deciding to, go round and round, but let go of the rope and put your energy somewhere where it's gonna matter. And I remember actually Dan Howie, Jen's husband, saying to me that the thing that really got him to kick into gear was when he saw his wife making connections, reading books, consuming them, and putting into practice what she was learning and talking with other people about it. And it was like she was learning this new language and she was in this new reality. And he thought, oh boy, I better get my butt in gear because she's blowing by me. Yeah. And so then it almost became a healthy competition as to who was they're so healthy. Competitive, right? Yeah. I love that about them. But it became this healthy competition of who's going to heal quicker. Yeah. So, which is I like that. Let's sign up for that game. So that's how you change the dynamic, though. As you change, it's going to affect all the relationships around you. Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Well, so I want to ask, what encouragement would you have for the listeners who are either walking through their own healing journey or who are wrestling with their family of origin or their God concept. Thank you. Their God. Yes. Their God concept. What encouragement would you have for listeners walking through these things? I think it's critically important for all of us to be able to articulate our identity. And there's a program I lead people through called Divine Design. And to be able to articulate our divine design, to know it. What are your gifts? What are your talents? What are your strengths? What's your personality? And as we figure those things out and we start to see the overlaps in all of those things, and I'm not talking about skills because those are learned things. Right. And if those skills are built on top of just out on their own, not on top of a strength, those are going to fail and frustrate and burn us out. Yeah. But if we can build skills on top of strengths, that's a whole different ballgame. But anyway, I think it's so important to be able to articulate our divine design or our identity, because that's kind of where your spine comes back up. That's where you can kind of put your shoulders back, put a smile on your face, and stand in confidence, because there were things I learned about myself, like my love of adventure. And my whole life, people have told me, you're so good with words. How did you string that sentence together? How did you articulate that thing that way? I'd be like, I don't know. I read books when I was a kid. I don't know. No, it's all credit to God because he put these things into me.
Yeah.
And these are things he built into me to do a work in this lifetime at such a time as this. We are all here for such a time as this. We all have a job to do, and it's a good one. And when we're living out our purpose, it's like how athletes talk about being in the zone. You're humming. And so I think it's important because the world sells us this idea that we're supposed to get good grades, especially in high school. We're supposed to go to a good college, get a good career, get married, have babies, buy the white picket house, situation, be good grandparents, travel in your retirement, and have a trust set up for your kids so they don't have to deal with probate. I mean, that's all the boxes of what, right? No, that is so the Matrix. That is so, and I'm referring to the Keanu Reeves movie. It is so not what we're here for. Are those things good? Sure. Those are great things. Go for it. Being financially responsible and all that. But we are here. We are built for a purpose. And when we're not doing what we're here to do, I'm here to be a coach. I'm here to encourage. I am an exhorter. And coaching is a perfect fit for me. So I'd say that would be my word of encouragement is if you feel like you're lost, purposeless, you're struggling with depression, anxiety, anger, all these things, I'd be curious if you can articulate your core values and what core value of yours is being violated. If you're feeling like you're drifting through life, can you articulate your identity? Do you know what your purpose is? Because if you don't, you can. And it's not that hard. The other word of encouragement I want to leave is that I love the phrase, not to spoil the ending, but everything is going to be okay. It really is. So the situation that you're in, I love reminding myself, this is a chapter, not a life sentence. And as we gather community and find that inner circle of people that we can trust and talk to, it's important to gather and that we've got good people. If you don't have good people in your life that you can depend on, it's worth the effort to find those people, pray for those people, seek those people out. But it won't always be like this. It doesn't have to always be like this. Our enemy wants us to think that, but it's not the truth. That's a lie.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So
thank you so much, Kris.
Oh my gosh.
I just appreciate your wisdom and your authenticity and your stories, and I just appreciate you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate you too, Ashley. This was so fun. I just appreciate your heart and your heart for people, for, you do this. You literally help people make their mess their message. You teach them how to do it. And I'm so grateful for you because without you knowing it, I knew who you were before you knew who I was. And I was walking with Jen through her process as she was on the Stories Unveiled stage. And you affected my healing process, Ashley. So thank you. Thanks for what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation on the Stories Unveiled podcast. We would love it if you would leave us a rating or review. If you would like to learn more about Stories Unveiled and our events, go to storiesunveiledconference.com or follow us on Facebook or Instagram at storiesunveiled_. The Stories Unveiled podcast is created in partnership with KTSY and Barefoot Media Ministries. For more encouragement and other podcasts, visit ktsy.org. Have an incredible day and go live unveiled.